So we are back,
We're back again.
And Chip has a story that he wants to tell us about something that happened in your house.
Well, it's not even so much a story, but just an experience. So, one of my weaknesses as a parent, as an adult, children, is that when I tend to go, when I'm under stress, I tend to be more authoritarian. It comes really naturally to the point where I really have to be aware of what I'm saying and how I'm behaving. When Quinn, my oldest, was young, I found myself at a point where I was doing a lot of telling, a lot of commanding, especially when we were in a rush, we were getting out of the house, and what began to happen is that Quinn and I started getting very powerful, and it looked like rebellion. And then I learned about Yeah, I would say things to myself like, he doesn't listen, or how many times do I have to tell him?
Yeah, I think every parent has thought that, or said that out loud.
Yeah, or that he needs to be reminded, thinking that the reason that he's not doing it is because he forgot.
Right, and it's up to you to remind him.
Right, and I can't stand when people remind me of things that I already know.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think kids like it either.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to read a number of statements and then questions so that you can kind of experience this for yourself. And so what would be good is if you just sort of put yourself in the mind of a child and try to pay attention to how you're feeling and what you're thinking as you hear these statements and questions. And there's even like a physiological response that you might notice, even though this is pretend and role playing, you still might notice this. I know that I do when I do role playing. And so Chip is going to read the telling statements, the ones that we jump to a lot because we feel like kids.
Because I'm really good at them.
Yeah, it's because he's good at them. Yeah. And then I will be reading similar statements, like with a similar goal, but in the form of a prompting question with the goal of getting the child to do their own thinking and their own planning.
Good cop, bad cop. Go brush your teeth. You're going to get a mouthful of cavities. Come on, we got to get going. Don't forget your coat. I need you to go to bed now. No. Do your homework. Keep your hands on your own body. We don't hit in our house. You need to put your dishes in the dishwasher. Hurry up and grab your school bag. We're going to be late for school. 5, 4, 3, 2, now. My goodness, would you stop using your whining voice? I can't hear a word you're saying. I need you to pick up your toys, or else I'm going to pack them up, and then I'm going to give them to somebody who really wants them.
What do you need so that your teeth can feel squeaky clean? What can you wear so that you can feel warm outside? What's next on your bedtime routine chart? What's your plan for getting your homework done? What ideas do you have for you and your brother to solve this? What did we decide at our family meeting? What's your plan for getting to the bus on time? What words can you use so that I can hear and understand you? What's your responsibility when you're finished playing with your toys?
So one of the things when you're giving those telling responses is that it really puts the child in the place to really they only have two choices, and that is to comply or to rebel. And as an adult, in those moments of stress, it's when you flip your lid or when you just need to get things going, complicity seems really attractive. It
Right.
seems like a really a great thing to have in the moment. But how might that affect kids long term?
Yeah, so in the moment it does seem really nice. I think especially if you have small children and they're doing their own thing and you just need to get to work or whatever it is. I think that one of the things that happens when I do this in parenting classes is that we talk about the fact that just getting something done is desirable, but that desire to, or that response of needing to either rebel or comply, what that might look like later. So the long-term response of that, or the long-term internal structure that it creates in children, is quite different or when they're younger than when they're older. So when they're younger, we want them to just do it. But then what does that look like when they're, like teenagers or young adults? And I often have parents who have young daughters, and being polite and doing what you're told is something that our culture tries to instill in all children, but I think it's especially true for females in our culture. And then if we're doing that and we're instilling that, always comply, always comply, always comply, if we fast forward that young daughter to their first relationship or college or encountering some sort of peer pressure, it can be a scary situation. And when I do the parenting classes, when we talk about this, I see light bulbs go off for the parents, and also worry in that aha moment.
Yeah, I have a daughter. I think about those things, and 3 sons, and kids are going to be put into positions that we're going to want them to problem solve. We're going to want them to be able to think for themselves. And when we get in this place where we've been lecturing or we've been commanding children, if they've only had practice at saying yes or no and not learning how to think for themselves, what does that what does that look like? What does it set them up for? What characteristics do they now have when some of those decisions that they have to make and those problems that they have to solve have much bigger consequences? So that's what we call long-term parenting. And I think the other thing is that the dynamic that this can create in a family if you have siblings. Generally, if what I've noticed, if I've been in a place where I've been maybe a little bit more dictatorial than I've wanted to be, if one of the kids is kind of responding through a power struggle, oftentimes that one of the other children will then start taking on the good kid role. And we'll say, oh, can I help with this or can I help with that? Which then starts to breed sibling rivalry.
Yeah, I've seen that play out in the classroom too. Yeah.
And you get the good kid, bad kid model, and that starts to, and then if you have other members of the family, then they start to respond similarly.
And I would imagine too that for the child that was used to being, like the bad kid, constantly in that rebellion role, what might that be like for them to then comply with something? Like it might be, they might feel like it's almost giving up a part of themselves or like giving in order to comply to something, and so they'd be less likely to long run.
And I think the thing that the questions that you answered or you asked when you were giving the questions, when I've had somebody do that to me, I feel so much more respected and so much more engaged and empowered in that situation. And hopefully, you've got a chance to experience that a little bit. It's a little hard to translate over video, but maybe considering some of those physiological responses that you had to me giving the directives, or Shauna Lee, who was giving those prompting questions, what we call motivational curiosity questions in positive discipline. Kids are in that place a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I know that for me, when I hear the telling statements, the directive statements, like what Chip gave, my body feels tense. Like I tense up, like I physically do. And then with the questions, I notice that sometimes it might feel a little uncomfortable because I have to think about something and do some problem solving, but I also take more responsibility. Like I don't tense up.
Brings accountability.
Yeah, it does. It brings accountability, and I don't tense up in relation to the other person, but I have to do my own thinking, which is what we want for the kids ultimately, is to have that skill of creating that internal structure to be able to do their own thinking.
Yeah, to breed their independence. Yeah.
And I want to say too that the questions really need to be asked with an atmosphere of curiosity and encouragement, because you can take the same question and in a moment of a flipped lid sound sarcastic and demeaning.
Yes.
Yeah. So we really
What's
need to be
next?
careful. Right. Yeah. What do you think you need? What caused that to happen? So yeah, I think that it's really important to think about the way that we as adults are asking the questions.
And at home, one of the things you can do to make this your own, a really simple exercise, is sit down for 2 minutes and just write down commands that you hear yourself giving. And then to the right of that, and that just another column, change those into questions that begin with what or how. So if you want to say, do your homework, you might want to ask, what do you need to do to be prepared for school tomorrow? And just go down the list and change them into questions. They should come in, and I think the helpful piece of that is that it turns it into your language, so it's more natural for you to say to your children.
And I think that this is a hard one for parents to do without having done that preparation work, like you just talked about, because in the moment, once you're aware of it, you'll start to hear yourself giving directives. You'll hear it a lot, and then to try to change it into a question in the moment can be tricky.
And you really want to focus on what to do versus what not to do. So I'm going to end with a dad joke. So I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon. I'll let you know.
It's a philosophical one.